Yo, what is up? It is Zedek here. And before this video gets started, I just want to say sorry this video didn't go up sooner. I actually ended up catching ammonia and it messed up my lungs, and a lot of other things happened that I wasn't really in control of. I had actually originally planned to sorry. I had originally planned to post every day this week, but unfortunately that couldn't happen. So I decided to just write the script during the entire time that I was pretty sick. And I'm decent now. I'm not 100%. I can breathe. I can move around a little bit, but I can't really do it much. So this video may contain a little bit less of your average, like my little hype persona. But, I'm still here. I'm still making the video for you guys. Missed y'all. But with that out of the way, let's get into the story. So in the last part, I left off after the sludge villain incident, with All Might explaining one for all to Deku and Bakugo, telling them to meet him at the beach tomorrow. And yeah, now into the story. Okay, Deku and Bakugo will meet All Might there the next day, and once they get there, they see All Might in his little small Might form. Once they get there, All Might sees them and buffs up. He then says, "Ah, there you are." And then proceeds to say, "Before I can tell you guys more about the quirk, I just want to see where you're at physically." And they'll both then look at each other and proceed to take their shirts off. And when they do, they'll both be extremely fit. They'll be built, and I mean built. Like they could probably take one for all at 20% off the rip right now. But, we'll see who gets that. All Might is then shocked. And this is when he then tells them that he wants them to clear the beach without using their quirks. So this leads to them cleaning the beach for about the next 2 weeks, and All Might being like, holy and All Might is honestly stunned. They also gained even more muscle mass on top of what they already had and trained during those days after cleaning the beach for a bit every single day. After this, All Might will then actually meet up with them after the 2 weeks, obviously, and tell them that they're going to actually decide who gets the quirk. And they both kind of look at each other and say the other one should have it. Like Deku says Bakugo should have it, and Bakugo says Deku should have it. All Might then laughs and says, "You're both great successors, but I need one of you guys to ultimately take the quirk." Deku then says, "Okay, let's play rock, paper, scissors for it." And Bakugo's just like, "Okay, best out of 3. Deku's like, "Yes, sir." They'll then play and Bakugo wins. He actually will be inheriting one for all. And like I said, he can use 20% of one for all off rip once he gets it. Anyways, All Might would then say, "Okay, young Bakugo, eat this." Oh man, I messed up the script. Give me a second. I'm a little sick in case you guys couldn't tell. But I'll push through it. So All Might then says, "Young Bakugo eats this." And Bakugo will kind of just stare at the little hair and be like, "What the fuck is this? Is this some kind of joke?" With Deku laughing in the background and All Might explaining that you have to ingest my DNA. Bakugo will be like, "Oh, okay, my bad." With Izuku kind of covering his mouth laughing. After this, they'll spend the rest of the day sparring without their quirks to get physically stronger. And for the next 9 months, Deku would actually spend the time refining his explosives, causing the least amount of splash damage as possible, and get even better at his taijutsu. He'd also train up his earth style and learn quite a few new jutsus, as well as make a more realistic clay dragon, like a fire clay dragon, not like the one that Deidara has. It looks, a little dopey, but like a genuine dragon. And his clay bombs will have a more realistic look to them, if that makes sense. Like the little people, like the little what does he make? Like the animals and little bugs that he makes will have more realistic look to them. He'll also have gotten even buffer and taller, and he's a solid 5'9". And he looks like Izuku, by the way. He just has a different hair color and he's more fit. I mean, that's really it. Bakugo, on the other hand, would have trained with one for all and actually can use 35% at this point. He'll also have gotten full cowling at about 4 months because he actually met Gran Torino, and his explosives will be even bigger and he'll be even faster and stronger. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and time skip to the end, and All Might will actually tell the two how proud he is of them, and that for the final day, he wants them to fight him going all out. Bakugo and Izuku would be shocked and be like, "Are you sure about this?" And All Might would say, "Yes, like despite what I look, I'm still confident I could take you guys on. They then kind of grin at each other and get into position, and Izuku and Bakugo would immediately start using their amazing teamwork to overwhelm All Might in synchrony. Okay, so now Deku would go into the air and create a bunch of clones that would basically jump off and kind of fight with All Might, exploding in his face with every single attack that All Might lands. And Deku also dropping bombs on top of that, and Bakugo using long-range explosions and taijutsu to, fuck up All Might. This would mean All Might would actually end up going all out and grab Bakugo in the face and go right into the knee. And this is when Deku, actually flying on his dragon, would actually say, "I wouldn't do that if I was you." All Might would then look up and kind of be like, "Huh?" And Izuku would be like, "Trust me, I wouldn't do that if I was you. You have micro bombs inside of you that can go off at any second and atomize you." This is when All Might would have a small, tiny sweat fall down his face and be scared. He will start sweating bullets, and Bakugo and Izuku would kind of grin. And this is when All Might would say, okay, you win. Just disable them. And Izuku would kind of start laughing and say, "Let him go." And he would let him go, and this is when Izuku would say, "Okay, done." This is when the bug, like little atom bugs, would go out and, just deactivate. And yeah, that would basically be it for the little fight that they would have, And yeah, so of course he wasn't actually planning to use it on him, but he could have. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and skip over to the day of the exam. Okay, Izuku doesn't actually trip in this version, so he doesn't end up meeting Uraraka, and he also doesn't mutter, so Ida has no reason to pick on him. He gets even better scores in the test, and when he gets to the actual destroying robots portion, he tries to walk up when Ida tries to stop him and says, "You can't distract that girl." Deku will just be like, "What's your deal, man? I just wanted to get to the front," with Ida being like, "My apologies," and, bowing down to him. Deku will be like, "What a weirdo," and then walk up to the front. And as soon as he gets there, the gates open, with Izuku running off fast as fuck, boy. And creating a giant dragon to fly and drop bombs on the robots. Keep in mind that they're explosive clones, so the splash damage is minimal, Anyways, he'll do this for a while and rack up about 100 points until a giant robot would come in, and he would smile, seeing the perfect chance to show off his bombs. Obviously, Deidara's micro bombs, but he uses it inside small explosives that go inside the target. So what this means is that they're like micro, but he can change them to their, like, you can see them, So he drops like little bug, a bunch of them. And this is when he then notices Uraraka, and in one fell swoop, he swoops down, grabs her, and flies away as an explosion goes on in the background. And Deku then looks behind him and says, "Art is an explosion." No, I'm just playing. Uraraka will then be like, "What is weird? What is going on with this weirdo?" And Deku would just be like, "Just kidding." Boom. Like out loud, and Uraraka will be like, He'll then pass and get 160 points in total, and on Bakugo's side, he'll actually get 149 off just pure combat points. Deku will drop Uraraka off, and they'll exchange names, and that'll really be it. They'll then go off to find Recovery Girl. Everybody would be staring at Izuku since he just destroyed a robot and destroyed over 100 robots, and Deku and Bakugo would basically go home, and Bakugo would say, "Hey Izuku, if I win, you owe me some food, got it?" And Deku would chuckle and be like, "Sure, if you win." And then he'll say, "If I win, you owe me food." They'll then both grin at each other, fist bump and laugh, and this is when they'll get home. 2 weeks would pass and they'd get their letters with Bakugo being like, "You almost broke," with Bakugo saying that he almost broke All Might's record, and Deku being told he actually broke it. And he did that because of his rescue points. Deku would grin at Bakugo, and Bakugo would kind of fume from the mouth, angry, and say, "Hey, you better enjoy it while it lasts, because I won't lose to you again." I'm going to go ahead and skip to the day that they actually end up going to school. They get ready for school, and on the way, they get grabbed by Mizuki and hugged. She then starts telling them how proud she is of them to do their best, because if they don't, she'll kill them. They then get a little feared, the anime fear, and they then go off grinning and smiling. They'll arrive to class, and this is when Bakugo will put his feet on the desk, and Deku would sit on the desk with Ida coming up and being like chopping in the air and being like, don't do that, this is private UA property, with Deku saying, chill man, we're not doing anything wrong, you can leave now. And Ida getting a little angry and saying, I simply can't allow it. This is when Deku would have a clay spider on Ida's shoulder and make it explode, making Ida mad. And right before he said anything, Uraraka will come in and be like, hey, you're the boy who saved me. With Deku looking at her and be like, oh yeah, it was no problem. With Bakugo saying, who's this cutie in Deku's ear? And Uraraka actually hearing this and blushing. Right as they're about to talk and Bakugo's about to get a little flustered, Aizawa would wake up and be like, it took you all 12 seconds to quiet down. That won't do. If you're here to make friends, I suggest you leave. Etc, etc. This is when he'll then tell them to, get their gym outfits on and meet him at the field, with Uraraka being like, what about orientation and the usual things going in canon? And yeah, by that I mean Aizawa telling them that they don't have time for that. This is when Deku and Bakugo would actually get asked. I mean, not asked, but they would go off, and get changed. While they get changed, they would actually get asked by Kirishima if they're brothers, and they'd be like, yeah. This is when the boys in the classroom would say, that's awesome, and point out how ripped they are. And they'd be like, how'd you get so ripped? And this is when they'd say, oh, we just kind of worked out. They then kind of go off, and Deku would do the ball throw and use his dragon to catch the ball once he threw it and kind of fly off with it. Meaning he'll get infinity since the dragon doesn't exactly have to drop it. This is when Deku would make it explode and Bakugo would throw the ball with One For All and his explosions, getting 3,600 meters. And the class being amazed, Uraraka would go and get infinity and Deku would be surprised. And the rest of the tests, Deku and Bakugo would excel and tie in the end, with the rest of the class being amazed and Momo thinking that Deku is actually very amazing. On the way out, Deku would actually go to Momo and put the moves on, saying, hey, you're a Momo Yaoyorozu, right? She'd kind of look at him and be like, oh yeah, that's me. And then he'd go up to her and say, well, I noticed you were very gorgeous and had a similar quirk to mine. What is it? She'd mega blush and, thinking Izuku's mad fine. And she'd then say, oh, my quirk, creation. I can create things from the lipids in my body. Deku would then say, oh, you can make things too? This is when Deku would say, that's awesome, and then ask her if she can create clay. She'd make one, and Deku would grab it and say, watch this. He would then throw the clay into the air, and this is when it would kind of go off, like 4th of July firecrackers and stuff. This is when he would then say, how about I take you home? With Momo being like, on what? And Deku would then throw a piece of clay, creating a giant dragon, and Momo would be kind of scared, and this is when Deku would smile at her and tell her if she trusts him, and this is when Momo would kind of nod and then hop on with him, with Deku flying by Bakugo and winking at him while having Momo holding on to him, a little scared. And Bakugo gets a little jealous, but proud of his brother. He then gets the guts to walk up to Uraraka and ask her to go grab a bite. She'll say yes, and they'd go off. Deku would drop her off and go home, and Bakugo would then eat with her and then drop her off, and they'd go home. And once they get there, about the same time, Deku would then walk up to Bakugo and say, so, how'd it go? And Bakugo kind of getting a little blushed and angry and being like, I'm getting to it, I'm getting into it. And Deku saying, because I asked Momo out and she said she'd love the idea. And we proceeded to make out for a while, with Bakugo being like, damn, that's bold. And them both kind of going inside happy for each other, And that's where I'm going to leave it off, boys. The next part will be the heroes versus villains and the USJ arc. I hope you're excited for that, but for that, I'm going to need 25 likes. So as soon as you guys actually, and I'm going to be nice, you guys need 20 likes. And after you hit that, the next part should be out. Hoping that nothing else happens. But with nothing else to say, Zether out.